The antique locket pulsed with golden light as my life drained away, my beautiful features melting from my face like wax. Victoria's plain brown eyes stared back at me from the hallway mirror, my eyes now trapped in her unremarkable body while she wore my face like a stolen crown. "How does it feel, Eleanor?" My sister's voice emerged from my stolen lips, cruel satisfaction dripping from every word. "To be the forgettable one for once." I tried to scream, but only Victoria's weak voice came out. The life swap was nearly complete. Our parents continued their evening routines downstairs, oblivious that their golden daughter was dying while their disappointment claimed her place. "Grandmother never told you about the locket's true power, did she?" Victoria ran her fingers through my golden hair, now hers. "How it swaps lives between blood relatives when fed their hair during the new moon." My vision blurred as my strength faded. The wedding announcement on the nearby table mocked me. My engagement to Alexander Rothschild, pharmaceutical heir and the man Victoria had always coveted. "Alexander will marry me thinking I'm you," she whispered as darkness consumed me, "and you'll rot in this worthless body while I live your perfect life." Then I opened my eyes to Mother's voice. "Eleanor, Victoria, breakfast." I bolted upright in my childhood bed, heart racing. Familiar yellow walls surrounded me, covered with my academic certificates and photos with Alexander. My hands flew to my face, my own features, then to my hair. Golden waves, not Victoria's mousy brown. March 15th, according to my calendar. 1 month before Victoria would steal the locket. 6 weeks before she'd discover the ritual. I was back. "You have a second chance," I whispered to my reflection. "Don't waste it." Victoria's knock came exactly as I remembered. "Eleanor, may I come in?" "Of course, Vicky." She entered in her usual drab outfit, eyes downcast in practiced meekness. "Could I borrow your blue cardigan today? I have that gallery interview." The same request. The same innocent tone. But I saw the calculation now, the way her fingers twitched with anticipation. She needed my hair, and the cardigan would collect strands when I brushed against it. "Actually, I'm wearing it today," I said smoothly, "but take my black blazer instead. It'll look more professional." Her smile faltered. There, the micro-expression of frustration. "I really wanted the blue one. It brings out my eyes." "Trust me, the black is better for interviews." I smiled warmly. "I want you to succeed." True, but incomplete. I wanted Victoria to get the gallery job, the position she'd used to research antique jewellery and discover the locket's history. This time, though, I'd be watching every move. After she left, I opened the locket carefully. 5 tiny compartments held hair strands from 5 generations of Whitmore women. Grandmother had called it a family tradition, preserving their legacy. She'd never mentioned it could steal someone else's legacy entirely. I examined my own golden strand in the morning light. The life swap required hair from both parties, a new moon, and a binding ritual performed by someone with Whitmore blood. The victim had to wear the locket during the swap, which explained Victoria's insistence that I never remove my protection charm. All lies. But this time, I'd be setting the traps. At breakfast, our family dynamic played out exactly as before. Father behind his newspaper, Mother fussing over me while ignoring Victoria, and Victoria herself quietly absorbing every slight. "Eleanor, darling, don't forget lunch with Alexander today," Mother said, cutting my toast like I was 5. "Keep him happy. The Rothschilds are so prestigious." I watched Victoria's knuckles whiten around her coffee cup. She'd always hated how effortlessly I'd won Alexander, despite her university attempts to catch his attention. "Victoria, wear something nice for your interview," Mother added as an afterthought, "though the Whitmore name will help regardless." The Whitmore name, our inheritance through the female line, though our parents had always treated me as the primary heir. After breakfast, I accessed the family archives using grandmother's codes. Codes Victoria would spend weeks trying to crack. The files revealed a disturbing pattern. The Locket had been correcting family hierarchies for over 2 centuries. An 1847 entry chilled me. The Locket corrected father's will when he favoured Catherine over myself. After the ritual, I became Catherine and she became me. The Locket knows its true mistress. But buried deeper in grandmother's personal notes, I found what Victoria would never discover. The swap reverses if the original owner reclaims the Locket while wearing the thief's hair. The Locket's loyalty can be redirected. Grandmother had known. She'd hidden the reversal method where only the true owner would think to look. My phone rang. Alexander's name on the screen. For a moment, my heart clenched, remembering how I'd lost him. "Hello, my love." His warm voice filled the room. "Alexander," I breathed, tears threatening. "I've missed you." "Missed me? We saw each other yesterday," he laughed. "You sound strange. Are you all right?" "I'm perfect," I said, meaning it. "Absolutely perfect." As I hung up, I noticed Victoria lingering outside my door. How long had she been listening? In my first life, I would have invited her in. Now, I recognized surveillance. "Getting ready for your interview?" I called cheerfully. She appeared wearing my black blazer over her brown skirt. The combination actually looked good, brought out highlights in her hair, added structure to her frame. But resentment burned in her eyes as she smoothed the expensive fabric. "It feels strange wearing something so elegant," she said carefully. "I'm not used to standing out." "You should stand out more often," I replied sincerely. "You're beautiful, Vicky. You just need confidence." The compliment hit its mark. Victoria's cheeks flushed, genuine pleasure flickering across her face. This had always been her weakness, desperate need for validation, resentment at needing it from me. "Do you really think so?" "I know so. You'll be amazing at this job." As she left, I began planning. Victoria would get the position, she was qualified, and our name would help. Within a week, she'd access the gallery's library on antique jewellery and occult artefacts. But this time, I'd be watching her research. This time, when she discovered the Locket's power, I'd be ready. And when the new moon rose and Victoria attempted her ritual, she'd find herself wearing a strand of my hair. Hair I'd plant myself. The hunter would become the hunted. I touched the Locket through my shirt, feeling its warm pulse. "Don't worry, grandmother," I whispered. "The Locket stays in the right hands." Outside, storm clouds gathered despite the clear forecast. I'd lived this day before, I knew the rain was coming. This time, however, I'd be prepared for every storm Victoria unleashed. The Locket grew warm against my skin, as if responding to my determination. Soon, very soon, my sister would learn what it felt like to be the victim, instead of the victor. This time, Eleanor Rose Whitmore would not be anyone's fool. 3 days later, Victoria got the gallery job. I watched from across the street as she emerged from the Whitmore Gallery, clutching the acceptance letter with trembling hands. Her face glowed with triumph. The first real victory she'd ever achieved without my shadow looming over it. "How wonderful, darling!" Mother gushed that evening, actually looking at Victoria for once. "The Whitmore Gallery is so prestigious. You'll be working with such important artefacts." Father lowered his newspaper. "Good for you, Victoria. Shows initiative." Victoria basked in their rare attention, but I caught her glancing at me, gauging my reaction. In my first life, I'd been genuinely thrilled for her success. Now I smiled and clapped, knowing exactly what she'd find in that archive. "I am so proud of you, Vicky," I said warmly. "This is perfect for someone with your research skills." The next morning, I followed her to work at a distance. The Whitmore Gallery occupied a converted Victorian mansion downtown, its Gothic windows perfect for concealing secrets. I knew from my previous life that Victoria would spend her first week cataloguing recent acquisitions, but her real interest lay in the restricted archive, the collection of occult artifacts our great-great-grandmother Evelyn had assembled. I needed inside access. "Alexander, darling," I purred into my phone, "would you like to make a donation to the family gallery?" I was thinking of something substantial enough to warrant a private tour. "Of course, love. How substantial are we talking? 50,000 should do it. I want to support Victoria's new position." Within hours, I had my appointment. The gallery director, Mrs. Pemberton, greeted me personally, practically salivating over the Rothschild donation. Victoria appeared at her side, professional smile firmly in place. "Eleanor, how lovely that you're taking such interest in my work," Victoria said, but her eyes were cold. She suspected something. "Family should support family," I replied sweetly. The tour began in the main exhibition halls, but I steered us toward the back rooms. "I am particularly interested in the historical pieces," I said, "the items that tell stories about our ancestors." Mrs. Pemberton's eyes lit up. "Oh, you must see our occult collection. It's quite fascinating. Your great-great-grandmother was quite the collector of mystical artifacts." Perfect. The restricted archive was exactly as I remembered. Dim lighting, climate-controlled cases filled with crystals, ritual daggers, ancient jewellery, and leather-bound grimoires. But I wasn't here for nostalgia. I was here to plant evidence. "This locket is interesting," Victoria said suddenly, stopping before a case containing a silver pendant set with dark stones. "It's said to grant the wearer their heart's deepest desire." I moved closer, pretending casual interest while palming the small glass vial I'd prepared. Inside was a single strand of my hair, along with a few drops of my blood, ingredients the reversal ritual would require. "How fascinating," I murmured, pretending to stumble slightly. My hand brushed against Victoria's jacket, and the vial slipped into her pocket unnoticed. "Do any of these actually work?" "Of course not," Mrs. Pemberton laughed. "Though the stories are entertaining. This grimoire here claims to detail life-swapping rituals using hair and blood magic." Victoria's breathing quickened almost imperceptibly. There. She'd found her research starting point. "May I examine that book sometime?" Victoria asked casually. "For cataloguing purposes, of course." "Certainly, dear. Just sign it out with me first." As we left the archive, I slipped Victoria a folded note. "Mrs. Pemberton's access codes," I whispered conspiratorially. "Don't ask how I got them. Just promise me you'll be careful with whatever you're researching." Victoria's eyes widened. "Eleanor, I don't know what you mean." "It's all right, Vicky. We both know you didn't take this job just to catalogue pottery." I squeezed her hand gently. "I've seen how you look at my locket, how you've always looked at everything I have." For a moment, Victoria's mask slipped completely. Raw hunger flashed across her face, followed immediately by shame and fear. "I would never." "Of course you wouldn't," I said soothingly. "But if you were curious about our family's more unusual heirlooms, I'd understand. Just be safe, okay?" That evening, I installed a tracking app on Victoria's phone while she showered. Child's play, really. She'd never been tech-savvy, and I had her passwords from watching her in my first life. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Days, I played the devoted sister and fiancé, lunching with Alexander and planning our wedding. Nights, I monitored Victoria's location and research habits through her phone. She was thorough, I had to give her that. Every evening after work, she stayed late in the archive, photographing pages from the grimoire and cross-referencing them with genealogical records. She was building a complete picture of the Locket's history, just as she had before. But this time, I was building my own picture of her. I began leaving traces of my presence everywhere Victoria went. A strand of hair on her desk chair, a drop of perfume on her research notes. Tiny amounts of my DNA that would activate the reversal spell when the time came. "You seem different lately," Alexander observed one afternoon as we walked through the park. "More intense." "Just excited about the wedding," I lied, adjusting my engagement ring. In my first life, Victoria had worn this ring at our reception, had walked down the aisle in my dress, had said vows in my voice while I lay dead and forgotten. "And you're spending a lot of time thinking about your sister." I looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "You watch her. Even when she's not in the room, you watch the spaces she's been in." Alexander's blue eyes were concerned. "Is everything all right between you two?" "Everything's perfect," I said, kissing him softly. "I just want to make sure she's happy. She's been alone for so long." Not alone, plotting. But Alexander didn't need to know that yet. 3 weeks into Victoria's research, I made my next move. I arranged to meet her for coffee near the gallery, timing it perfectly for her lunch break. "Vicky, I need to tell you something," I said, sliding into the booth across from her. "I've been having dreams." Victoria nearly choked on her latte. "Dreams?" "About grandmother. She keeps showing me the locket, telling me it's dangerous." I touched the pendant through my blouse. "She says someone close to me wants to hurt me with it." Victoria's face went pale. That's ridiculous. It's just jewellery." "Is it?" I leaned forward, letting genuine fear creep into my voice. "Vicky, I found some of grandmother's old journals. There are stories about women in our family swapping lives, about sisters who—" I trailed off, watching Victoria's reaction. "Who what?" she whispered. "Who killed each other for what the other had?" I reached across the table and grasped her hand. "Promise me you'd never hurt me, Vicky. Promise me that if you ever felt jealous or angry, you'd talk to me instead of doing something drastic." Victoria's hand trembled in mine. "Eleanor, I would never—" "I know you wouldn't," I said firmly. "But the dreams feel so real, and I keep finding strands of hair places they shouldn't be. In your room, on your clothes. It's like someone's collecting pieces of me." The accusation hung in the air between us. Victoria yanked her hand away, guilt and panic warring across her features. "You're being paranoid," she said, but her voice cracked. "Why would anyone want your hair?" "According to grandmother's journals, for a life-swapping ritual that requires hair from both sisters, performed during the new moon." I watched her face crumble as I spoke. "The ritual that lets one sister steal the other's entire existence." Victoria stood abruptly, coffee spilling across the table. "I have to get back to work." "Vicky, wait." But she was already fleeing, leaving me alone with the spreading stain and the satisfaction of knowing I'd planted the perfect seeds of doubt. That night, I watched through her phone's camera as Victoria paced her room, clutching printed pages from the grimoire. She was so close to attempting the ritual, but now she was terrified I suspected her. Perfect. Fear would make her sloppy. Desperation would make her reckless. And when she finally worked up the courage to try stealing my life again, she'd find herself wearing my hair, my blood, my essence. The new moon was only 10 days away. I pulled out my own copy of the grimoire, the complete version Victoria would never find, and began preparing the reversal ritual. Every ingredient she would use against me, I would use against her tenfold. Soon, my sister would discover what it truly meant to be the forgotten daughter. Victoria avoided me for 3 days after our coffee confrontation. She took different routes home, ate meals in her room, and spoke only when directly questioned by our parents. But I could feel her watching me, studying my routines, waiting for the right moment to strike. The phone tracking showed her visiting occult shops across the city, purchasing candles, salt, and silver bowls. She was gathering ritual supplies, just as she had before. The new moon was 7 days away. "She's planning something," I told Alexander during our evening walk. We'd started taking the same route every night, past the old cemetery where Victoria would attempt the ritual, past the stone mausoleum where our ancestors lay buried. Victoria, planning what? Alexander's arm tightened around my waist protectively. I think she wants to hurt me. The words came out broken, fragile. She's been acting so strange, and I keep finding evidence that she's researching ways to harm me. That's impossible. Victoria worships you. That's what makes it so dangerous. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Alexander, if something happens to me, if I seem different, or if I start acting unlike myself, promise me you'll question it. Promise me you won't just accept that I have changed. His blue eyes filled with concern. Eleanor, you're scaring me. What kind of research? Witchcraft? Life-swapping rituals using family heirlooms? I touched the locket, letting moonlight catch its golden surface. This has been in our family for generations, and there are stories, dark stories about what it can do. Alexander pulled me closer. Even if such things were possible, which they're not, I'd know you anywhere. No one could fool me into thinking they were you. I smiled sadly, remembering how completely Victoria had deceived him in my first life. I hope you're right. That night, I received the text I'd been expecting. Meet me in the garden at midnight. We need to talk. V. I found Victoria pacing between Mother's rose bushes, her usually neat appearance dishevelled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands shook as she clutched a manila envelope. I know you suspect me, she said without preamble. I know you think I want to hurt you. Do you? I asked gently, as if speaking to a wounded animal. Every day of my life. The words exploded from her like a confession. Do you know what it's like being your sister, living in your shadow, watching everyone love you effortlessly while I have to beg for scraps of attention? I let tears gather in my eyes. Vicky, I never meant to... Of course you didn't mean to. She laughed bitterly. That's what makes it worse. You don't even have to try. You just exist, and the world arranges itself around you like you're the sun. I love you, I whispered. You're my sister. Love. Victoria spat the word. You love me the way someone loves a pet. Condescending affection for something harmless and inferior. She opened the envelope and pulled out photocopied pages. The ritual instructions, genealogical charts, historical accounts of successful life swaps. All her research laid bare. I found something you didn't want me to find, she continued. The truth about our family, about what this locket can really do. Vicky, please. The new moon is in 6 days. I have everything I need. Your hair, the binding words, the location where our ancestors are buried. Her eyes glittered with desperate hunger. I'm going to take your life, Eleanor. I'm going to become you, and you're going to die as me. I staggered backward, hand pressed to my chest in perfect mimicry of shock and terror. You can't be serious. This is insane. Is it? Victoria stepped closer, and I could see the madness burning in her gaze. Or is it justice? You got everything. The looks, the intelligence, the inheritance, the perfect fiancé. What did I get? Nothing. Less than nothing. I'll tell Mother and Father. I'll tell Alexander. Tell them what? That your sister believes in magic? Victoria laughed. They'll think you've had a breakdown. And besides, it won't matter. In 6 days, I'll be you, and you'll be dead. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Eleanor? I already have enough of your hair for the ritual. You've been shedding it everywhere, on my clothes, in my room, even in my research notes. It's almost like you wanted me to find it. After she disappeared into the house, I remained in the garden, letting my smile emerge in the darkness. Victoria thought she was so clever, believing she'd collected my hair naturally. She had no idea I'd planted every strand, that each piece carried my blood, my essence, my claim to the Locket's loyalty. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Mother announced at breakfast that she'd invited the Rothschilds for dinner the evening of the new moon, exactly when Victoria planned to perform her ritual. But Mother, Victoria protested, I have plans that night. Plans can be changed, Mother said dismissively. This dinner is important for Eleanor's future. I watched Victoria's face cycle through frustration, panic, and finally, cold calculation. She would have to move the ritual earlier, which meant less preparation time. Perfect. Actually, Mother, could we postpone? I said suddenly. I haven't been feeling well, and I'd hate to be poor company for Alexander's parents. Victoria's head snapped up, suspicion blazing in her eyes. But Mother was already nodding sympathetically. Of course, darling. We'll reschedule for next week. Victoria cornered me in the hallway afterward. What game are you playing? No game, I said innocently. I really have been feeling unwell. Strange dreams, moments of dizziness, like something's draining my energy. You're lying. Am I? I leaned against the wall dramatically. Or am I already feeling the effects of whatever you're planning? Maybe the ritual works both ways, Vicky. Maybe stealing someone's life requires you to give up pieces of your own. Fear flickered across her face before she masked it with anger. You don't know anything about the ritual. Don't I? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photograph. The complete grimoire, the pages she'd never seen. Did you really think I wouldn't research our family's darkest secrets? Did you think I'd just sit here passively while my sister planned my murder? Victoria went white. Where did you get that? Grandmother left me more than just the locket, I said softly. She left me warnings, instructions, ways to protect myself from exactly what you're planning. It doesn't matter, Victoria said, but her voice wavered. I've come too far to stop now. Then you'd better hope your research is complete, I replied, pocketing my phone, because I've learned some very interesting things about what happens when life swap rituals go wrong. That afternoon, I made my final preparations. In my room, I arranged the reversal ritual components: silver bowls filled with spring water, white candles in a perfect circle, and at the centre a strand of Victoria's hair I'd collected weeks ago. The original grimoire had been explicit about the reversal requirements. The ritual had to be performed simultaneously with the original swap, using ingredients from both participants. When Victoria spoke the binding words, I would speak the reversal. When she called upon the locket's power, I would redirect it back to its true owner. But first, I needed to ensure she would go through with her plan despite her growing suspicions. I found her in the archive that evening, hunched over ancient texts, searching for any mention of ritual failures or protective measures. Find anything interesting? I asked, settling into the chair beside her. Victoria slammed the book shut. Why are you here? To give you this. I placed a small velvet box on the table between us. An early wedding gift from Alexander. He wanted me to have it before the ceremony. Inside the box lay a delicate silver chain holding a pendant, a perfect replica of our grandmother's locket, down to the tiny hair compartments. He had it made using sketches from old family portraits, I explained, so I could have a backup if anything ever happened to grandmother's locket. Victoria stared at the replica, her breathing shallow. It's beautiful. Try it on, I suggested. I want to see how it looks. With trembling fingers, Victoria lifted the chain and fastened it around her neck. The moment the clasp closed, I felt the original locket grow warm against my skin. The connection was established. Perfect, I murmured, and Victoria's eyes went wide as she realised what I'd just done. This is a trap, she whispered. Yes, I agreed pleasantly. But you're already caught in it. And tomorrow night, when the new moon rises and you perform your little ritual, you're going to discover exactly what it feels like to be me. Victoria's hand flew to the replica locket, clawing at the clasp, but it held fast. The chain won't open unless the original owner releases it, I explained, rising from my chair. And I am the original owner, Vicky. I've always been the original owner. As I walked toward the door, Victoria's desperate voice followed me. Please, Eleanor, don't do this. Don't do what? I turned back with innocent eyes. I'm not doing anything except giving my beloved sister exactly what she's always wanted. The new moon was rising, and tomorrow Victoria would finally understand what it meant to be the forgotten daughter. The cemetery was bathed in silver darkness as Victoria arrived at the ancestral mausoleum, her ritual supplies clutched in trembling hands. I watched from behind a weathered headstone, my own circle already prepared in the shadows, white candles flickering in the wind, silver bowls reflecting the starless sky. Victoria's movements were frantic, desperate. She'd spent the entire day trying to remove the replica locket, clawing at it until her neck bled, but the cursed chain held fast. Now she knelt beside our great-grandmother's tomb, spreading black candles in a perfect pentagram. I can feel you watching me, she called into the darkness, her voice cracking. Come out, Eleanor, let's finish this. I stepped into the moonlight, my grandmother's locket pulsing against my chest like a second heartbeat. Hello, sister. You think you're so clever, Victoria snarled, lighting her candles with shaking hands. But I've read the complete ritual now. Even your precious reversal spell won't work if I modify the binding words. Is that what you think? I moved closer, noting how the replica locket around her neck had begun to glow with the same golden light as the original. Tell me, Vicky, in all your research, did you ever wonder why grandmother chose me to inherit the locket? Why not you, the scholar, the researcher? Victoria's laugh was bitter. Because everyone always chooses you. No. I knelt across from her, our circles nearly touching. Because I'm not the first Eleanor to face this choice. This exact scenario has played out 6 times in our family's history. Sister against sister, the locket as judge and jury, her hand stilled on the ritual knife. What are you talking about? The real family secret isn't that the locket grants power, I said softly. It's that it tests worthiness. Every generation, jealousy corrupts one sister, and the locket reveals who deserves to carry our bloodline forward. I pulled out the original grimoire, opening it to pages Victoria had never seen. Records of 6 previous life swap attempts, all ending the same way. 1823. Margaret tried to steal Catherine's life. The locket rejected her, and Margaret died in agony while Catherine lived to continue our line. 1847. Isabella attempted to claim Helena's inheritance. Same result. 1899, 1923, 1967, 1984. Every time the envious sister died and the chosen one survived. Victoria's face went ashen. You're lying. The locket doesn't just swap lives, Vicky. It judges souls. And you, I smiled sadly, you've already been found wanting. Shut up, Victoria screamed, raising the ritual knife. I won't listen to your lies. But her voice broke on the words, because deep down she knew I was telling the truth. The replica locket was burning against her skin now, its golden glow turning sickly green. You want to know the real tragedy? I continued, beginning to light my own candles, in perfect synchronization with hers. I actually loved you. Despite everything, your jealousy, your schemes, your hatred, I loved you. But love isn't enough to save someone who won't save themselves. Victoria began chanting the life swap incantation, her words echoing off the surrounding tombstones. Ancient syllables twisted in the air between us, and I felt the familiar tug as the locket's power awakened, but this time I was ready. As Victoria spoke the binding words, I spoke the reversal. As she called upon the locket's power, I redirected it through the replica she wore. The two pendants began to pulse in perfect opposition, mine drawing power, hers expelling it. "What's happening?" Victoria gasped as the green light around her neck intensified. "This isn't how it's supposed to work." "This is exactly how it's supposed to work," I replied, my voice growing stronger as hers weakened. "The locket is claiming what belongs to it." Victoria's appearance began to shift, but not in the way she'd expected. Instead of taking on my features, she was aging rapidly, her brown hair turning grey, then white, her skin wrinkling and sagging as if years were passing in moments. "Stop this!" she shrieked, clawing at the replica locket. "Stop it right now!" "I can't stop what you started," I said, though my heart broke watching her suffer. "You chose this path, Vicky. You chose envy over love, theft over growth, death over life." The truth was more terrible than I'd admitted. The locket didn't just test worthiness. It punished the unworthy by draining their life force to strengthen the chosen bloodline. Every failed attempt in our family history had fed power back to the rightful heir, ensuring our line's continued prosperity. Victoria was paying for 6 generations of failed attempts. "Please," she whispered, now looking like an ancient crone despite being only 23. "Please, Eleanor, I'm sorry, I didn't know." "You did know," I said gently. "You knew it was wrong, and you chose to do it anyway. That's what makes you unworthy." But as I watched my sister, my only sister, crumble before me, something in my heart rebelled. This wasn't justice. This was cruelty. I reached for the original locket, my fingers finding the tiny clasp. "I release you," I whispered to Victoria. "I release you from the binding." The moment I spoke the words, both lockets went dark. Victoria collapsed to the ground, her appearance slowly returning to normal, while I felt a strange emptiness where the locket's power had been. "Why?" she gasped, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes. "Why would you save me after everything I did?" "Because that's what sisters do," I said simply, "even when they don't deserve it." I helped Victoria to her feet, noting that the replica locket had crumbled to dust around her neck. The original felt cold and lifeless against my chest. "Is it over?" she asked. "The magic is gone," I confirmed. "The locket is just jewellery now, but Victoria..." I gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet my eyes. "If you ever try to hurt me again, through any means, magical or mundane, I will destroy you. Not with curses or spells, but with the truth. I'll tell everyone what you attempted tonight, and you'll lose everything." Victoria nodded, understanding flooding her face. "I'll leave. Tomorrow. I'll go somewhere far away and start over." "Good." As we walked back through the cemetery together, Victoria asked quietly, "Will you ever forgive me?" I considered the question seriously. "I don't know, but I hope someday you'll forgive yourself." 3 months later, I received a postcard from Portland. Victoria had found work at a small museum, cataloguing artefacts for people who appreciated her scholarly mind. She looked different in the enclosed photo. Thinner, sadder, but somehow more real than she'd ever been in our family home. "I'm learning to be myself instead of wishing I was you," she'd written on the back. "It's harder than I expected, but better than dying from envy. Thank you for the second chance I didn't deserve." Alexander found me reading the postcard on our honeymoon, tears streaming down my face. "Missing your sister?" he asked gently. "Missing the sister she could have been," I replied, "if she'd chosen differently from the start." "People can change," he said, pulling me close. "Maybe she still will." I pressed my face against his chest, feeling the weight of the powerless locket around my neck. No longer a mystical artifact, just a family heirloom carrying memories of love and loss. "Maybe," I whispered. "I hope so." But late at night, when Alexander slept peacefully beside me. I sometimes caught myself wondering what would have happened if I'd let the locket complete its judgment, if I'd chosen perfect justice over imperfect mercy. The answer came in dreams where Victoria's aged face haunted me, where I ruled over a family line built on the bones of the envious and unworthy. I always woke grateful for the choice I'd made. After all, some victories are only worth winning if you can live with yourself afterward. And Eleanor Rose Whitmore had learned that the hardest person to face in the mirror is yourself.